Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hope you guys are having a great Wednesday. Got lots of NHL news to discuss, like Connor Bedard getting his 100 career NHL point Monday. Roy Kernes made his NHL debut. And then there was lots of games going on in the NHL. Plus, I discussed that the Canucks are going to be a playoff team or not. And lots more other NHL news. I don't want to give too much away soon, but make sure you stay tuned in to this entire episode to the end. And before we get started, make sure to give me a follow on the Hockey Talk TG podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on iHeartRadio, and make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on the latest episode I put out of the Hockey Talk TG podcast. This airs every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time. And you want to make sure that you're staying up to date on each episode I put out. And we have a lot of discussions on this episode. This is your number one podcast for all things hockey, so make sure you give a follow right now. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So Connor Bedard, he gets his 100th career NHL point in the Blackhawks 5-2 loss to the Calgary Flames on Monday. He scored on the power play to give him his 100th career NHL point in just his 112th NHL game. He is the 24th teenager in NHL history to reach 100 points, and he's the fastest teenager to reach 100 points since his favorite hockey player growing up, Sidney Crosby, done it in 80 games in the 2005-2006 NHL season. So I'm pretty sure that's got to feel great for Connor Bedard, and it's actually tied with Jeremy Roenick for fast teenager to reach 100 points in Blackhawks franchise history, which I know he's received some criticism recently, and I know Jeremy Roenick gave him, like, on his podcast like a few weeks ago, if I'm correct, he didn't like what Connor Bedard did at the Winter Classic, so he just had to give it to him, like, give negative comments on Connor Bedard. So he's kind of received some criticism, but he's still the best player on the Blackhawks and actually the leading offensive force for the Blackhawks. So he shouldn't be getting this much criticism. So, but yeah, a great milestone for Connor Bedard. Really happy that Connor Bedard got his 100 career point despite the loss. Of course, you guys know my coverage that I do for the Chicago Blackhawks. I cover them on Twitter, and I'm also covering them for Fansided. So make sure you go check out my work on Fansided, Blackhawk Up page. I do cover the Blackhawks in there. I also post game coverage, news, and other content on my Twitter account, so make sure you go follow that. But the Blackhawks, not only was this a loss Monday to the Calgary Flames, but they also lost the third straight game, lost 4 of their last 5 games, and they moved to 14-28-2 of the season, which I was listening to the Blackhawks Breakaway podcast yesterday with Pat Boyle and Charlie Vermoliotis, and they were discussing about the Blackhawks struggles, Seth Jones' struggles, and I know Nick Foligno talked about it in the post-game Monday. He said, we're tired of talking about it. The fans are tired of hearing about it. And I kind of agree with that because, like I said, I cover the Blackhawks. I mean, cover the Blackhawks. I write articles for them on Blackhawk Up, Fansided page. And I'm also a fan of the Blackhawks. And, like, and I kind of agree with Nick Foligno said. I mean, we're tired of discussing it. Like, I don't want to have to keep discussing that my favorite team is garbage every night. They lose most of the games every night. I mean, they're still struggling. They're going to have to find a way to get better. I mean, at this point, it's just useless to hear this discussion like every single time, hearing the same crap every single time. Like, something has got to change. It's got to change now. And it's not only just Seth Jones, it's the whole entire team. And this is what Nick Foligno has said Monday in the post game. So it's not just him struggling, it's the whole team that's struggling. And I know they made the coaching change, so you would think after the coaching change, this would be a little bit of a boost because the Blackhawks fired Luke Richardson in December 5th? And Anders Sorensen made his coaching debut on, I think it was December 7th against the Winnipeg Jets. And you would think after the coaching change, this Kyrie could spark a little bit boost for the Blackhawks. I mean, just look at the Red Wings. I mean, Ty McClellan, before the Red Wings lost 6-3 to the Sharks last night, they went on 6-7 game winning streak with Ty McClellan. So I thought maybe, and the Blackhawks did go on the winning streak before with Arnold Schwarzenegger, 3-game winning streak. So it's got to feel like a 7-game winning streak. But that's basically it. I mean, they're still continually struggling. But at this point, it's not the coach's fault. It's the players. It's we that have to do something about it. It's we that have to find a way to get better and start playing some actual hockey, because this is the sloppiest hockey that I have seen from the Blackhawks this season. The inconsistency, especially in Monday's game against Calgary. So it's just tough for Blackhawks fans right now. But for the Calgary Flames, Roy Kernan made his NHL debut Monday against the Blackhawks. Of course, Dallas' favorite NHL team growing up. He was a Calgary Flames fan, and he made his NHL debut with his childhood team. He had 2 assists for his first 2 points in the NHL. Jacob Pelletier had a 3-point night on Monday, getting 2 goals and 1 assist, and Dustin Wolf made 23 saves, and Calgary improved to 21-14-7 this season before losing to the St. Louis Blues yesterday 2-1. Now they're 21-15-7 of the season, and they sweep the season series against the Chicago Blackhawks for the first time since the 2011-2012 NHL season. And the Blackhawks head to Nashville, the Music City, to face the Predators Thursday at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. The Flames will face the Blues again Thursday at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. This is actually a 4-game road trip for the Calgary Flames. They started off their 4-game road trip in Chicago, and they faced the Blues twice during their 4-game road trip. So, that's kind of funny right there. But anyway, moving on to the Stars and Maple Leafs game. So Logan Stankoven and Matthew Shane each notched 3 points in the Stars' 4-1 win over the Toronto Maple Leafs. Logan Stankoven had 2 goals and 1 assist. Matthew Shane, he had a goal and 2 assists. 3-point nights right there. And Dallas moves to 28-14-1 of the season. They won 8 of their last 9 games, and they conclude their 5-game road trip 4-1-0. In fact, this is a fun fact right here. The last time the Stars won against the Toronto Maple Leafs was on February 13th of 2020. That was during the pandemic. That was during COVID. And that was the last time that the Dallas Stars won against the Toronto Maple Leafs. But of course, they started shutting everything down in, I believe, of March or April 2020. So yeah, that was the pandemic COVID year that they last won. And that was a 3-2 win for the Dallas Stars on February 13th of 2020. And Jake Oettinger, he made 27 saves in the win. And for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Austin Matthews scored the lone goal for the Leafs, while Joseph Wall made 19 saves, and the Leafs have lost 3 in a row. And the first time this season first time this season that the Leafs have lost 3 in a row, and they moved to 27-16-2 of the season. Toronto concludes their 3-game homestand against the Devils Thursday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Dallas returns home to face the Canadiens Thursday at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Of course, the Dallas Stars already faced the Canadiens this season, winning 2-1 in the shootout. I believe that was last Saturday that they faced the Canadiens for their first meeting of the season. And that was a shootout win for the Dallas Stars. And now they face them again Thursday in Dallas, 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. All right, moving on to the teams that will be playing each other in the 2026 NHL Stadium Series, the Boston Bruins and the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Bruins powered their way past the Lightning with a 6-2 win, and they moved to 22-19-5 of the season. They're tied with the Tampa Bay Lightning for 3rd place in the Atlantic, and these two teams didn't play not too long ago. They played each other on January 9th, and the Lightning had a 4-1 win. Now it's when the Bruins were still on their 6-game losing streak, which so far they won 2 in a row now, beating the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. And in overtime last Saturday, I think that was last Saturday, Bruins had a 4-3 overtime win over the defending Cup champs, and they have a 6-2 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Dave Pastrnak, Pavel Zacha each had a goal and 2 assists for a 3-point night. Andrew Peak and Boston Bruins captain Brad Marchand each had a goal and assist for 2-point night. And Parker Wotherspoon scored his first NHL goal. Trent Frederick scored for Boston, and Jeremy Swayman made 43 saves. And for the Lightning, team captain Victor Hedman and Connor Geeky scored for the Lightning. I thought this was going to be a comeback win for the Tampa Bay Lightning because the Bruins had scored 4 goals on Tampa to make it 4-0. And then Victor Hedman, Connor Geeky scored for Tampa. Victor Hedman also had an assist for a 2-point night. And then I thought this was going to be a comeback for the Lightning. And then the Bruins scored 2 shorthanded goals in the third period to finish it off. So it's kind of tough for Tampa. But Andrei Vasilevsky, he made 18 saves in the loss for the Lightning. Excuse me. And the Lightning had their 4-game point streak ended, and they were 3-0-1 during the span, and they moved to 23-16-3 of the season, and they end their 3-game road trip 1-1-1. Brayden Point, he did not play in this game because he missed the team meeting, which I thought was kind of dumb. I thought that was kind of dumb, but I guess in another way it makes sense. But you want to have one of your top players like Brayden Point play in the game, but unfortunately he didn't play in the game because he missed the team meeting, which, like I said, is dumb, but at the same time it kind of makes sense because you're not going to be there for the team meeting. You probably shouldn't play. So yeah. Anyway, the Lightning returned home to face the Anaheim Ducks Thursday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. The Bruins head to the nation's capital in Ottawa. Ottawa's the capital of Canada, by the way. You all didn't know that. And they face the Senators Saturday at 2 o'clock p.m. Central Time. All right, moving on to 2 Canadian teams. Vancouver Canucks, Winnipeg Jets. Kyle Connor, he nets his 6th career hat trick in the Jets' 6-1 win over the Vancouver Canucks. This was a natural hat trick for Kyle Connor. He also had an assist for a 4-point night. And the Jets moved to 30-12-3 of the season. They're the first team in the NHL to reach 30 wins. Mark Scheifele, Nino Niederreiter, and Neil Ponick each had a goal and assist for a 2-point night in the win. And Connor Hellebuck, who will be representing Team USA in the 2025 NHL 4 Nations Face-Off event, he made 23 saves in the win. And for the Canucks, Niels Höglander scored the lone goal for Vancouver, and this comes after the Canucks the Jets were up 6-0, and Connor Hellebuck could have had a shutout. He could have had a shutout in this win, because like I said, the Jets were up 6-0, but Niels Höglander had to spoil the fun. He had to ruin the shutout and score a goal for the Vancouver Canucks, and Kevin Lankinen made 27 saves in the loss. And the Canucks have lost 5 of their last 6 games, 1-3-2 during the span, and they moved to 19-14-10 in the season. They end their 5-game road trip 1-2-2, and they return home for the start of a 3-game homestand against the LA Kings Thursday at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. The Jets continue their 8-game homestand against the Seattle Kraken Thursday at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. All right, now we're going to discuss a little bit about the Vancouver Canucks. I know I discussed it on last week's episode of Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. We're just going to discuss them a little bit again because this is like bad. This is like bad for the Vancouver Canucks. Like their performance of recently, I did say that there was hope for the Canucks to still be a playoff team in last week's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. But based on their recent performance and the struggles, I don't think, like, they are 1 point out of a playoff spot in the Western Conference, I believe. The Calgary Flames jumped them for that second wild card spot in the Western Conference. But based on their recent performance, I'm not seeing the Canucks as a playoff team. I mean, I hate to say it, because especially this was the team that won the Western Conference last season. And they lost 5 of the last 6 games, like I mentioned, because they lost 6-1 to the Winnipeg Jets. And they're currently 19-14-10 this season. And they seem to be better at home. They have not home, on the road. They have a 12-6-4 record on the road, and at home they're 7-8-6. And playoff chances, I got this off of MoneyPucks.com. They have a 32.3% chance of making the playoffs. If you round that, that'll be a 32% chance of making the playoffs this season for the Vancouver Canucks. And taking a look at the scoring defensive statistics, the Canucks have scored 124 goals, which is 21st in the league. And there's 32 NHL teams. 21st in the league. And they allow 135 goals against, which is 14th in the league. That's bad for the Vancouver Canucks. That is bad. I mean, and they probably, I don't know for sure, but I think they have a minus goal differential, which is also bad. I mean, I didn't expect the Canucks to, be out of a playoff spot. But like I said, they still have time. They still have time to get back into a playoff spot. But based on their recent performance, I don't know. I'm starting to have second thoughts. Because, like I said last week, I said it was still possible for the Canucks to still be a playoff team on last week's episode. But now, I don't know. But it's still time. I mean, we're at the midway point of the season. I mean, you got into April to, turn things around. And, they play 43 games this season. They play, 45 games this season. But at this point of the 2023-24 season, they had a 29-11-3 record with 61 points in 43 games. So at this point in the season, at the midway point of the season, they were 29-11-3 with 61 points in their 43 games of the season. Now they're 19-14-10 of the season. 19-14-10 of the season, 43 games played. And the special teams kind of haven't been doing a lot of late. It's been inconsistent. Not seeing that much from the special teams. Their power play is 15th in the league, 21.9%. If you round that, that'll be 22%. And the penalty kill is 12th in the league, 81.1%. If you round that, that'll be 81% right there. So, not really that much going on for the Vancouver Canucks. And if you take a look at the next 5 games, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for the Vancouver Canucks. Like I mentioned, they started 3-game homestand against LA Thursday. Then on Saturday, January 18th, they faced the Edmonton Oilers, a team that knocked them out of the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs last season. And then on January 21st, they take on the Buffalo Sabres. That should be an easy win there. And then on Thursday, January 23rd, they faced the Edmonton Oilers again. So 5 days after they faced them at home Saturday, excuse me, 5 days after they faced them at home Saturday, they're on the road to Edmonton to take on the Oilers again. And then on Saturday, January 25th, they're up against the Washington Capitals, a team that is first place in the Metropolitan Division and first place in the league. I mean, they're coming off a 3-0 shutout win over the Anaheim Ducks yesterday. And it's going to be tough for the Canucks, but they're going to have to find a way to rack up some wins. Like I said, there still could be time, but I don't know. I'm starting to have second thoughts, so I'm kind of in the middle at this point. But it's still time for the Canucks to, possibly turn their season around and, get back into a playoff spot because they're 1 point behind the Calgary Flames right there. All right, taking a look at Eastern Conference teams' chances of making the playoffs. Of course, I'll do another segment like this for Western Conference teams on Friday's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. So stay tuned for that. But top teams that I feel like will have a great chance of making the playoffs in Eastern Conference. Boston Bruins. The Bruins are coming off of a 6-2 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning yesterday. 22-19-5 in the season with 49 points. They're first place in the wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. The team, their goal differential is a -24, which is not good. But hey, they won 2 in a row. Look to make it 3 in a row against Ottawa. Ottawa is coming off a 2-0 shutout win over the Islanders yesterday. So going to be another tough opponent. But let's see if the Bruins can make it 3 in a row. And despite the struggles that they had before, the Bruins have lots of talent on their team like David Pastrnak, Brad Marchand, and Charlie McAvoy. Playoff odds, I got this off of MoneyPuck.com. They have a 37.4% chance of making the playoffs. If you round that, that'll be 37% chance. But they're currently first place in a wildcard spot and they're tied for third in the Atlantic Division right there with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So if they win against Ottawa and Tampa loses to Anaheim, then the Bruins can, take that sole possession of third place in the Atlantic Division. But we'll just have to see. But Joe Sacco's the new Bruins head coach. The Bruins could, possibly still make the playoffs. Another team that I feel like can make the playoffs this season, Columbus Blue Jackets. They're coming off of a 3-2 shootout win over the Philadelphia Flyers yesterday, and they started off the season 5-8-2 in their first 15 games. Of course, it was kind of an emotional start to the season as well with the tragic passing of Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau. So it was an emotional start to the season, and it was just tough overall for the Blue Jackets. They found a way to overcome that adversity, to overcome, that struggle. Because like I said, this was tough. This was emotional. Found a way to overcome it. They won 5 in a row. They're 21-17-6 of the season. And they're currently second place in the wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference. So I got to say, I'm really liking what I'm seeing from the Columbus Blue Jackets. And their team resilience. Of course, they put in the work. They put in the commitment. Despite the emotional times that they had at the start of the season. And Zach Werenski, he could be a contender for the Norris Trophy. He could possibly win the Norris Trophy. He had a goal. I don't know if he had I know he had a goal last night. I think he scored 2 goals in that shootout win over the Flyers. And he's certainly having a standout season. He could take home the Norris Trophy. He's actually first in points among defensemen, and he leads his team in assists with 35 and points with 50. It is the first time this season that the Blue Jackets have occupied a wildcard spot for the Stanley Cup playoffs, possibly making a chance Stanley Cup playoffs. And the last time we saw the Blue Jackets in the Stanley Cup playoffs was 2020 when they faced the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round. And I'll never forget those first 2 games of that series where it went to 4 or 5 overtimes that game. And Brady Point had the game-winning goal. I believe that series went to 5 games. Brady Point scored the game-winning goal in Game 5 in overtime. Now, I think that series had 3 overtime games, and the Lightning, I believe, have won all 3 of those games. So, and that was during the pandemic, COVID year in the bubble. Yeah. All right, for the Ottawa Senators, I think the Senators might have a chance of making the playoffs this season as well. I think I said this at the start of the season, where, the Senators could have a possible chance to make the playoffs based on the additions they got and, the signings and all the other stuff that's happened for them during the offseason. Actually competing for a wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. They're coming off a 2-0 shutout win over the Islanders Tuesday in the 22-18-3 of the season with 47 points. And to secure that playoff position, they got to maintain consistent performances against top opponents. And I'm not saying the Islanders are a top opponent, but I'm not saying the Islanders are a top opponent, but I'm just saying in general that's going to have to be the key for the Senators to be in the playoffs. Brady Tkachuk, he leads the team in goals with 18. Tim Stützle leads the team in assists with 29 and points with 43. So they continue to play pivotal roles in team success. And the Senators, they have a tough next 5 games ahead. They face the Capitals Thursday. And then Saturday, they face the Boston Bruins. And then Sunday, they head to Newark, New Jersey to take on New Jersey Devils. And then Tuesday, they face the New York Rangers. And then Thursday, they face the Boston Bruins again. So that's 3 teams that are currently in a playoff spot right there that they'll be facing up against. So it's going to be tough, but we'll see if the Senators can get it done. Playoff odds, 62.4% chance of making the playoffs for the Ottawa Senators. If you round that'll be 62%. And then the last team that I feel like could have a chance of making the playoffs, I meant to discuss this on last week's episode of the Hockey Talk TG podcast, but I didn't. The Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens, They are 21, 18, and 4 of the season. They're coming off of a 5-3 win over Utah Hockey Club. Last night, they are 2 points behind the Columbus Blue Jackets for the wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. And, of course, key players like Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, Lane Hudson, Uri Slapshot stepping up for the team for the Canadians. And the Canadians are 7-2-1 in the last 10 games following that 5-3 win over Utah last night. Playoff odds, 19.2% chance at making the playoffs. If you round that, that'll be 19%. In the next 5 games for the Canadians, another tough schedule ahead. Face the Stars Thursday, which they lost to in the shootout last Saturday, so they look to get a little revenge. And then Saturday, they begin a 3-game homestand against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Of course, they're coming off a loss to the Stars yesterday. And then on Sunday, January 19th, they're facing the New York Rangers. And then Tuesday, they face the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then Thursday, they head out to Detroit to face the Red Wings. So that's another tough schedule for Montreal. That's like, 3 teams that are in a playoff spot. And then the Red Wings, of course, trying to compete for a playoff spot. They did lose 6-3 to the San Jose Sharks, which ended their 6-7 game winning streak right there, which out of all the teams, they had to lose to the Sharks, which doesn't make no sense because the Sharks are not even a good team. You're one of the hottest teams coming in, and you lose to the San Jose Sharks, which doesn't make any sense at all. But they look to rebound. I think the next game, I don't know when the next game is, but of course that was a tough loss for the Wings nonetheless. And a tough schedule ahead for the Montreal Canadiens, but we'll see if they can rack up some wins against some very great teams like the Stars or maybe the Maple Leafs. They could possibly get a win over the New York Rangers, but we'll just have to see. All right, NHL games on the slate for today. So not really a busy day for hockey. There's only 2 games on the slate, both of which will be coming on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. First, we got the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Buffalo Sabres at 5 o'clock p.m. Central Time. First of 3 meetings this season between the 2 teams. They will face each other again on February 27th in Carolina and on April 8th in Buffalo. And then we got the Edmonton Oilers taking on the Minnesota Wild at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. Last meeting of the season between the 2 teams. The road teams so far have been dominant in this season series. They won the first 2 games. The Wild won 5-3 in Edmonton on November 21st. And the Oilers crushed the Wild in the state of hockey, St. Paul, Minnesota. They won 7-1 on December 12th. Now they face each other again for the last meeting of the season. And like I said, you can watch these games on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. Only 2 games on the slate for today, so another not so busy day of hockey. But anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Really do appreciate it. Like I said, make sure to give me a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. And make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. It's your #1 podcast for all things hockey. And you know what? And make sure you stay up to date on the latest NHL news, games, players, stats, all the good stuff I discuss on the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. So make sure you're following the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and make sure you head over to YouTube to subscribe to the YouTube channel. But anyway, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. God first as always. Be blessed. And I'll see you guys Friday for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Take care.